The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
There'll be spectacle, there'll be fantasy, there'll be daring do and stuff like you would never see.
Be a movie! Yeah, we're gonna be a movie!
Starring everybody
And me. There'll be heroes bold, there'll be comedy, and a lot of fuss that ends for us real happily. Be a movie! We can watch it all develop. Starring everybody!
And me! We'll take the world and set it on its ear.
Come on, join in! We're gonna start right here!
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time slot you are listening to us in. You are here with us on Triple Feature on the Radulich Network. I am your host, strangely enough for tonight, because Mark's a glutton for punishment, Dorian Price, and we are reviewing three of my favorite movies, despite the insanity that they bring. But before we get to the movies themselves, let me introduce the cadre of superheroes that are with me tonight. First up, we have from Honeysuckle Rose Creation, Miss Alexis. Alexis, how you doing tonight?
Doing well. Glad to be here. You owe me for suffering through these.
Right, that's fair. Strangely enough, that is what I've heard from pretty much everyone who is on this show. Poor Mr. Matt Kettner was unable to join us due to a business trip that came out of nowhere. But even he was like, "What? Why would you do this to me?" But here we are. Next up, we have makeup artist extraordinaire, Miss Chae Tate. Chae, how we rocking tonight?
I'm doing pretty damn good. How are you?
I'm here. We'll see what happens. And finally, the man who is normally our host, your mandated reporter, and quite frankly, he's mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. Boss, how we feeling?
Tonight I am Captain Nude on the Moon. That's my superhero name.
Well, at least thank God it's not a description of the Dick Tracy villain you're about to become.
Oh, more on that later. Let me tell you, Dorian, I'm glad you're here tonight. I'm glad you're hosting. I'm super thrilled about all of this. Had you not showed up tonight, had there been, boss, let me tell you, I'd have come to where you were and beat you with a sock with a soap and a sock. I just want you to know that.
That's fair. And again, considering where you work, you can probably get soap and a sock very easily. So, that's...
I know people who know people.
Who are you kidding, Dorian? He'd stop by my place and I'd give him directions how to find you.
Right. No, you just drive him there.
Yeah, I would.
No muss, no
I drive him I would drive him, but when he was done, I'd take him out for chicken wings.
And while my bleeding body lays on the floor. Okay, like I said, we have three awesome movies that we are looking at tonight. And in chronological order, first up, we have Dick Tracy, 1990, starring and directed by Warren Beatty. This movie has such a weird production history, which matches its look and its feel. For those of you who have not seen it, Dick Tracy is based on a 1930s comic book of the same name. Dick Tracy was a hard-boiled cop who wore a bright yellow trench coat as well as a bright yellow fedora, because it's good to see the guy from Curious George getting work.
This comic strip did not understand how to turn down the saturation. There was no mixing of colors either. It was either bright red, bright orange, bright yellow, bright green, bright blue, bright purple.
It started as a comic strip in the newspapers, right? It was a funny pages book. You got to remember, like, stuff needed to pop on those Sunday funnies, or you weren't going to get attention. So yes, everything had to be in Technicolor.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
They also didn't have the ability to do all that much blending back in the 1930s. Like, if you look at the superhero, like Captain America and Batman and stuff, it was all primary colors, and it was the Liechtenstein, like, pointillism for shading and stuff like that.
I think historically the printing press made the Bible and then comics. So, I mean, we're really only, the limitations with what we're working with technology-wise.
Right. But yes, the 1990s Dick Tracy follows our lead character, Dick Tracy, played by Warren Beatty, as he tries to, and fails for several times, to capture and indict for his many criminal actions, Big Boy Caprice, played under a crap ton of makeup that, ironically enough, he designed himself, Al Pacino. This movie has a pretty star-studded cast that we'll get to in a sec. But as the movie continues, Big Boy and Dick Tracy fight each other. Madonna's randomly in the movie because it's the 90s and why the fuck not?
And apparently the producers said, you know what, let's just go ahead and make this an 1.5 hour long Madonna music video.
Right?
When we get to the movie, we gotta talk a little bit about Madonna because this is plus or minus her Desperately Seeking Susan movie career. So I want to say, and I don't want to commit to this right now because you have a job to do, and I don't want to deter you from it like other people. But I believe Madonna at the time was the film It Girl, coming off, a stellar at that time music career.
Absolutely. And she was actually dating Warren Beatty at the time of filming. But before I break down the rest of the movies, let's just start with Dick Tracy. Alexis, since you're right next to me, fire away. What are your thoughts on this movie? Do you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Is this another thing you want to beat me over the head with a soap in a sock for?
So Dick Tracy is one of the earliest examples that I can find of too much editors in the control room. Supposedly this movie was 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and the studio told Beatty, no, you got to trim it down to 1:45 at least. A lot of this movie you can clearly tell has been put through the ringer. There's a lot of scenes that obviously the way they were shot and done, they were going to be like their own little scenes, and instead they are overlaid into musical montages with more of Madonna's singing, which that really screws with the tone. I mean, there's an awesome fight sequence. Hell, that scene of Tracy punching out all the guys and they all fall with one punch like freaking bowling pins was hilarious, but it doesn't work because it's silent and played over the song. It's like, if you're going to give us a fun action scene, you give us a fun action scene. You don't include it as part of the montage. And like I said, they
couldn't resist.
I wasn't even looking.
You give a monkey a brain. He wants to be the center of the universe, and you give Dorian can power over the buttons. And boy,
yeah, no, but it's clear that this is not the final project that Beatty wanted. I did still enjoy it for the most part. I know Chae will talk more about the makeup, but it did win an Academy Award for Best Makeup and fully deserved it. These characters, the Dick Tracy villains in the comic books were cartoons. I mean, you literally had flat top, you had lips, you had mumbles, you had rat face, I can't even remember, just all these, they were larger than life, crazy. And I love how just balls in they went with the makeup on this. It was a lot of fun.
I gotta cut in there because I showed this to Jonas and my 10-year-old son, and they were more horrifying to him than the orcs from the Lord of the Rings. He was like, what monstrosities are these? What horror movie is this? I'm like, it's Dick Tracy. It's a superhero show. Drawing inspiration from Batman.
Dad, did you give me LSD? Am I tripping right now?
And he's like, I'm going to have nightmares. He's doing the, the Red Letter Media thing. What's wrong with your face? Like, the whole movie.
Of course, I can't watch it without thinking about that classic Daffy Duck cartoon and all of all those characters.
Neon Noodle. So good.
You're all under arrest.
Speaking of the weird ass tone, as we've mentioned, Madonna sings through a good chunk of this movie. The music itself is not written by Madonna or any of her songwriters. It's written by Stephen Sondheim of, amongst other things, Sweeney Todd fame, Into the Woods, and other such wonderful musicals that I don't hate as much as Into the Woods. So again, that throws it too. The music is very good, but as Alexis did point out, it is kind of it feels like Sondheim halfway through writing the music went, what if we did Dick Tracy the musical? And they were like, no, sit down, no, and no. You know better.
Bad composer, bad. But
Go back
me
to
on Noodle. Shut up.
As Al Pacino says in the movie, go play the piano.
I gotta say, by the way, anytime you think about Al Pacino chewing the hell out of the scenery, I know a lot of people think about like Scarface or something. No, this for me is Al Pacino at his most Al Pacinoist. I'm reminded there was a line we joked about with the Sonic the Hedgehog review, the scene of Jim Carrey as Robotnik doing the VR thing with the skiing and the dinosaur. And we joked about how it's clear the director just said, just go do what you do. Just go do what you do and we'll hit record. And I swear it was the same thing with Beatty and Pacino. I honestly think Beatty just told Pacino, just go have fun. Go play.
Well, again, this went through so many directors, and Mark, I'm going to get to you in just a second. It went to so many directors that Beatty finally just did it himself because there were so many problems. So, and I don't think he was ready for basically what he was going to run into. Because I would like to share with everyone here real quick some of the big cast members that are in this movie. Obviously, we've talked about Warren Beatty and Al Pacino already, and Madonna, but also Dustin Hoffman is randomly here.
I think my favorite character mumbles.
Right? The one that I forget about every damn time.
Me too, right?
Is Dick Van Dyke is in this movie as an evil DA. Kathy Bates is there for like 30 seconds. And in a lovely Godfather reunion, we also have James Caan. So he gets to team back up with Al Pacino.
For 2 seconds.
Yeah, again, for it was like a minute and a half. We got some of your regular gangster types like Paul Sorvino's in this, Edo Ross, James Tolkan, which always threw me off. I was like, J.R.L. Tolkien's in this? Oh, wait, no, wrong guy. Charles Durning as the very, very obviously Irish chief of police. And a early performance of Cole Meany for you Star Trek fans. He played Chief O'Brien in Star Trek Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. He is, and I literally quote, this is his character name, Cop at Tess's #1. But for all you big crime fans, our final really big name of this movie, randomly enough, is Mandy Patinkin. So those of you who love Criminal Minds, yes, he's in this movie.
And those of you who felt that you got shafted on getting to see him sing with Madonna and Evita, you get your duet here in this.
It's like, Gare, I sang with him. You happy, you nerds? But anyways, on that lovely segue, Mark, your thoughts on this lovely piece of cinema?
We're not doing the craft review, right, boss? This is initial impressions or history.
Initial impressions,
film.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because teacher, I'd like to follow the instructions given. Anyway, gosh, I saw this, I think, when it came out. I think I saw it in the theater. At the time, I don't think I connected it to Batman 89, but then I wasn't the brilliant film critic that I've turned into in my late 40s. But I remember I had kind of a passing interest in Dick Tracy, having been born in 1976. So he was in my dad's newspapers. He was in the funny pages. He was kind of an icon of comics and superheroes and whatnot. And growing up in my house, we were huge Madonna fans. Fight me. I will go to the mat for Madonna. Up to Vogue. Everything, and this used to be my playground, and Like a Prayer. Everything after that's a little sketchy. We actually had.
You don't love Die Another Day?
No, wait. You're so wanting to jump on that joke. I'm gonna feed you a better one. We had the Madonna sex book in my house, prominently featured.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, buddy. Boy, nothing like being an adolescent and seeing her Jesus Christ pose hanging, on some beach somewhere. Madonna. Yeah. Anyway, I remember loving the movie as a kid. 1990, I'm like a freshman in high school, I think. And I have been wanting to talk about Dick Tracy on here for years. Like none of you are my original choice for this. You're all seconds. My first choice for this was Chris Bailey. And I wanted to do a whole week of Dick Tracy stuff. I wanted to do a comic, and I wanted to do this movie, and I wanted to dedicate a Metal Hammer of Doom, that's how far back this goes, to the soundtrack, because I wanted to talk about Madonna for an hour and a half. It never quite came to be. I got social. But I'm glad we finally got this together, because I have thoughts. And upon rewatch, as opposed to 14, 15 years old, 48, almost 49 years old, watching it with my 10-year-old son as he's increasingly horrified by the monstrosities in this movie, I have thoughts now that I would like to share when we get there.
Oh, good. I can't wait. Chae, over to you.
So I really love this movie. I love comic books. I love comic book movies. And one of the things that Dick Tracy did that doesn't usually get done is really exemplify how exaggerated everyone looks in comic books. Mm-hmm. The makeup is absolutely fantastic. It is 100% horrifying. Like, this reminds me of some of the artists that I follow on TikTok that intentionally do creepy ass sculptures of children's show characters, but it is so fantastic, and it captures the highly cartoony nature of the comic book really well. All of the characters are incredibly unique. The makeup in this moves beautifully. Like, you genuinely believe that these people are just really fucked up looking.
These Morlocks.
What was that?
I said these Morlocks.
Pretty much. It's
yeah, it's definitely giving Morlock vibes.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm reminded of a joke that Kevin Smith made when he was reviewing the 1989 Batman with Mark Bernardin. And Mark Bernardin asked, like, okay, what is with these plague punks that we have here? And he goes, no, see, what it is this is like 4 days after 28 days later. So, like, the Rage virus is still with us.
Chae, when you're done, I gotta cut in with something that I just thought about, but I don't want to interrupt your flow.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And the makeup in this is just so beautifully done, and they absolutely did a fantastic job at capturing the really strange looks of everyone. I mean, and I know they kind of dropped this at near the middle, but at the start of the film, even Mandy Patinkin did not look like Mandy Patinkin. Like, they did a really good job at paling out his face and hollowing his cheeks out, and he did not look like himself for a good long while. It kind of dropped in the middle of the movie, but yeah, and I also
continuity.
Continuity.
You can't expect consistently in a major Hollywood feature. What's wrong with you people?
You act like they're getting paid millions to do this.
At least they did it again when he has that duet with Madonna, because you notice it's like, all of a sudden 88 Keys looks just a touch different.
Right?
Yeah.
I like what you said, Chae, about how the movie really captures the spirit of exaggerated facial features and whatnot. And it's both ironic and timely that we're talking about Dick Tracy, because I don't want to go off on a tangent. I'm only going to say it because I wanted to make this comparison. But the trailer for Snow White, the live action remake, just dropped. I don't want to get into it. We did a rant on this on Monday, and I'm only bringing it up because the Critical Drinker made a point of saying, because they replaced the human actors with CGI after everyone threw a Sonic the Hedgehog V1 fit over their use of spirit people as opposed to dwarves, the rendering and the CGI looks garbage. But the point Critical Drinker made, to Chae's point, was it looked as if they looked at the artistry, the exaggerated cartoony artistry of the 1930s feature, and just did that, but photorealistic. And it's like, no, you're not supposed to take the 1930s artistry and make it live action. People don't look this way. What Cthulhu-esque monsters have you created here? This is the stuff of nightmares.
For the record, those who want to hear that rant on Snow White, it is available on YouTube and TikTok. And where else is it available, Mark?
It's in part of the review large, but it's also cut out as a clip on YouTube and TikTok.
All right.
Nice. Well,
Fun
okay,
plug.
let's get into the nitty-gritty of this movie. This just going through the research on this thing, it has again its production history is insane. And it seemed like that was a big thing in the 90s, is a good idea would come up and it would just take forever to get off the ground. But yes, as one of the things, as Alexis pointed out, is there is a 2-hour and 15-minute version that exists, and Jeffrey Katzenberg basically smacked Warren Beatty over the head continually until he cut it down to 1 hour and 45 minutes. But yeah, as also talked about, Al Pacino actually designed his own makeup for this, and then makeup artist John Caglione Jr. Was the makeup artist that actually did put it all together, and they enjoyed working together so much that since then, John Caglione Jr. has been Al Pacino's personal makeup man on all of his movies. However, on the somewhat more sad side of things, apparently Warren Beatty's a bitch to work with, because several people turned down this movie and or were fired from it. Of the big names out there that turned it down was Gene Hackman, who said, and quote, he couldn't bear being directed by Warren Beatty again after their experience together on Reds, which was made in 1981. Sean Young, in her continual "I can't get into a superhero movie to save my life," after Batman, was actually fired from this movie when she was originally cast to play Tess Trueheart, and has said that the reason was that she wouldn't sleep with Warren Beatty. However, that's been shot down. Beatty said he just made a mistake and she wasn't, right for the part, and he felt bad about it. But in a continuing thing of Beatty's ego, and then I'll stop there and we can get into the craft review. Beatty decided to do all of his own stunts, which pushed the budget higher than it was supposed to be, because they had to ensure this almost 50-year-old man, no offense to anyone about to turn 50, but with all the stunts he was doing, including slamming his face into a light pole, they had to insure him so he didn't break.
I now desperately want to do an on trial for Bullworth, just so we could talk about Warren Beatty. Let me, really quick, before we get into the craft review, if I don't do this now, I won't do it later, and then Robert will be mad at me. So you talk about Warren Beatty being a bitch to work with. Apparently, Warren Beatty is the king of pettiness. I won't tell the story nearly as well as Robert does with just his... he gets so excited by this. But apparently, Warren Beatty owns the intellectual property, Dick Tracy. He owns the rights to it. And because of how things went with, I believe it was Buena Vista, Walt Disney Studios, he has held on to those rights by doing like appearances as Dick Tracy, so that it's kind of like the Roger Corman thing with the Fantastic Four, where we just shoot a garbage movie to hold on to the rights.
Yeah, I was saying he was the original creator of the iFan Forsythe it.
Yeah. So Warren Beatty, up until I think recently, and I think he did it just recently enough that he's got the rights until it goes into public domain and will inevitably become a slasher movie like Popeye. He just does these periodic appearances as Dick Tracy, and that allows him to retain the rights. And he does this so nobody else can have the rights, because he's that angry about how he felt he was treated by the studio, which is amazing. And now I just want to dedicate an entire month to Warren Beatty stuff on this network, because he is now my patron saint.
It kills me because I think that they could do something new with Dick Tracy, but humor me, I think this needs to be an adult-focused animated property. Not like anime, but like a very stylized animation. I really think if they did something like that on Amazon Prime, I think it would be a smash.
Yeah, as long as you're not willing to put that in theaters, because I have an entire argument and a legal team ready to prosecute you on the idea of this would do well in a theater. However, throwing it on Amazon or Netflix, sure.
I would have to agree.
I think doing it as a series on Amazon or Netflix would be really, really fantastic. Like, I don't think Dick Tracy really warrants a full movie on its own, but like having some little episodic content.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I could see
Yeah.
that, definitely. Not to mention you'd have more fun playing around with a variety of villains. I mean, how many characters are in this playing background villains? And again, it's like we have James Caan, Hollywood royalty, who was in the movie for less than 2 minutes.
Something like that, yeah. But yeah, that with on that note, let's get into everybody's favorite part, the craft review, where we tear this thing a new one. Alexis, fire away.
Like I said, this movie is all over the place tone-wise because it clearly had too many editors in the booth with it. It's very hard to get through, and I'm just gonna say it. I can't help but feel like there's a lot of Beatty's ego on display. So many of the shots with him, it's just like, Beatty, you had to make yourself look that good and that smart and everything. Not to mention the crazy amount of plot holes. I never caught why Breathless was so in love with Tracy, except for the plot demands it. I never understood why she decided to become the blank, again, except the plot demands it. There's so many parts, it's just like, I remember watching this movie as a kid and I loved it, but I think I loved it because, again, it's a live action cartoon. You know, it's bright, it's colorful, it's crazy looking. As I watch it as an adult, I go, this movie doesn't make a lick of sense anymore.
No.
I mean, did we really need umpteen shots of Tracy raiding Big Boy Caprice's area and trying to arrest him and all of them talking about how he can't make it stick?
I would agree. I think, and you're kind of sitting on this as well. Sorry, we're having a tech issue with the camera. That's why it went dead. But one of the things that bugged me most about this movie, I'm sure at least one of you will hit on it, but I'm just going to fire the gun off now, is how much lines are repeated.
Mm-hmm.
For absolutely no reason. Like,
and a lot of those are ADR lines to boot.
Yeah. Well, the one that gets me the most is when Tracy falls down into the Club Ritz area where Tess was being held, but they lock the door as they get her out of there. And the guy up there can literally see him through the glass. And it's like, Tracy, what are you doing down there? Are you hurt? Tracy, what are you doing down there? What are you doing down there? It's like, dude, shut up. But Alexis, continue. Sorry.
I think the one I caught repeated twice was like, why would someone kidnap Tess and not leave a ransom note? It's like, you literally just said that less than 2 minutes ago.
Right.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was ADR to help fill up some of the moments. I think the editors were afraid of just letting the movie breathe, which is also a shame because they got freaking Danny Elfman to do the score. And if you're going to have Danny Elfman, yeah, use Danny Elfman, especially since Beatty admitted the reason he wanted Elfman was he wanted him because of Batman 89. And the score reflects that. This is a very Batman 89.
It goddamn copied it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it pretty much is the Batman 89 score. It's like, if you're going to have Elfman do exactly what you wanted, then let him do it.
Right. And Mark, I'm assuming we'll get to this in your craft review, but you seem to have some very strong feelings about Mr. Elfman.
Yeah, it's like somebody took a goddamn circus, put in a garbage can, and rolled it down a hill. That man has one beat. One. And it's the same one in Batman, in this one, and every other stupid thing he does.
I take it you are not a fan of our Mr. Elfman.
Sir, I like John Williams.
Fair.
I like Howard Shore. I like music that sounds like music for adults. I'm not interested in Danny Elfman chasing a circus around and recording it and going, composition. Yeah, it drives me a little nuts. I'm a little over Danny Elfman and his same beat.
Fair play. Alexis, please continue if you had anything else.
Again, this is a property that really does need a restart. There is solid stuff there, but it needs to be taken with the right tone. Dick Tracy needs to be tongue-in-cheek. Yeah, we know this is corny. It's from the 30s. Yuck, yuck, yuck. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the kind of thing we need to see done with it. And I want to see done with it. I would love a streaming series focusing on him and the villains, again, stylized animation, I think it could be amazing.
I would agree. Mark, take it away.
I wish we had talked a little bit about Batman 1989, because there's no way to talk about this movie without comparing it to that.
Right.
Well, can't you compare all three of these movies to it?
Yep.
That was Robert's joke.
Uh-huh. So they get Tim Burton to do Batman 1989. He does it very stylized in this very Tim Burton-y way, and it's a huge hit. And Hollywood took all the wrong lessons from it. The lesson they took from Batman 1989 was now it's the old red letter media. What else you got? And they started just digging into the trash can and finding like what other comic book heroes can we make in the exact same style with Danny Elfman's exact same score. And here's the problem. There needs to be one nerd with ultimate power in these studios that can come into a room and say what I'm about to say. And this may come as a shock to some people, and I don't want to trigger anyone, but hear me out. Dick Tracy and Batman are not the same guys.
No.
And as goofy as Batman has been throughout the years, I mean, we tend to only think now of Batman being either, Chris Nolan's Batman or Frank Miller's Batman, as if nobody else ever had a handle on this character. But Batman went to fucking space. And, there was a period where Batman fought aliens. Batman has been a goofy as fuck character.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, I wish people now remembered as fondly as I do Batman 66. Because it is a great representation of what Batman has also been. But instead, we got Tim Burton's Batman, and then everyone got goldfish brain and forgot everything else about Batman, and that's all Batman's been since. Fast forward to this Dick Tracy movie. Dick Tracy is this, yes, he's a hard-boiled noir character, but he was also in the funny pages. There was a lot, Dick Tracy fought like the Legion of Doom style superheroes by the way that they looked. I mean, we joked about it before with the makeup and everything, but like he's fighting people like Eraserhead and Hammerhead, like this nonsense.
There we go. David Lynch directs Dick Tracy.
For the record, when Daffy faced him, it was Rubberhead.
Yeah.
Gotta rub ya.
Honestly, at this point, can we get a Cronenberg to do this? Let's go with some real body horror if that's the direction you want to go.
Right.
Just slowly driving Dick Crazy mad. Like, they all look like they're monsters, and he just shoots himself at the end. Like the movie I'd make. And Robert would totally produce that for me.
Oh.
Anyway. A movie where Dick Tracy kills himself? Yes. Robert, we can't have someone kill themselves at the end of every movie. We certainly can, and that's what we're paying you for. Okay, Robert. Anyway,
he's like John Peters with his giant spider.
Yeah.
Anyway, a half an hour ago, you asked me what did I think of this movie. Other than it is the wrong tone, the wrong style, the wrong representation of this movie, it's entertaining. I actually think it needed to be about 90 minutes. They had 90 minutes worth of story here that they stretched out way too long. There's a shit ton of repetition. I wish we had done the plot synopsis.
I thought I did.
Nope.
I was saying like the whole thing is him trying to chase down Big Boy Caprice and get him indicted.
That was your plot synopsis? Oh,
that was my plot synopsis. Because that's basically the whole plot of the movie is he's trying to catch Al Pacino.
Well, I think that's great that I then blinked and missed it because that's a problem with the movie is it isn't very clear why he's getting away with things. And it's not clear why Dick Tracy, who is this master detective and honored police, can't seem to figure this out. And it's like, well, you can't figure out how to get Big Boy Caprice until we're ready for the third act, and then you can. And we're gonna fill this. They also. I remember thinking remembering that Madonna was more prominent in the movie than she actually is. And now watching it again, I was like, oh, I wish there had been more. Like Warren Beatty and Madonna have a lot more sexual chemistry on the screen than the other gal that he's paired with. whose name escapes me, but
Tess Trueheart.
yeah, her. And I
Her.
wish they had done more with Madonna. I think she's actually kind of wasted in this movie. Like the singing and dancing that they have her do is fine. Like if you want to, pad the runtime with this, give more to Madonna, especially during that period. The costumes are fun. They're the only bit of color in the movie. I had forgotten about the kid, and I guess as a child, he did not resonate. When I watched this as a kid, I was focused on Dick Tracy and what part of the boy's power fantasy he presents. So I'm not looking at the kid with the bottomless fucking stomach. However, as an almost 50-year-old with his own son, I was keying into the sort of the father-son dynamic between Dick Tracy and the kid. The kid's funny. That montage of when do we eat, a little too long. Like we could have cut that guitar solo down just a few notes, but before it overstayed its welcome, it was a funny bit of comedy in a movie that sorely needed it. Overall, in retrospect, I still like Dick Tracy for what it represents in the history of film. And I certainly think that there are some great performances, some great over-the-top performances. It's kind of like, all right, everyone, here's your wrestling reference of the night. It's like the Beware of Dog pay-per-view to me. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, indulge me for a moment. They in the 90s, they did a pay-per-view in North Carolina, and there was a storm that was so bad the lights went out. Didn't really affect the matches. Everyone, you have like the Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, British Bulldog. You have like really good wrestlers in this era of the 90s that can handle, wrestling in the dark. But it was still wrestling in the dark. And people, however good the matches might have been, people are like, I can't see shit here. Like, what are we doing? And then eventually the lights came on for the main event, and they had to redo the whole thing the following Tuesday. And that's kind of it kind of reminds me of this movie, where a lot of good stuff happening here, a lot of great performances, great costumes. Wish I could see it. It's all in the dark, and it didn't need to be. It is people going, well, Batman was all in the dark because he's Batman.
It's kind of how he rolls, except in the 60s when he was out in the daylight all the time.
I wish Richard Donner's Superman had come out in 1990 instead of Batman, because then Dick Tracy would have looked like Richard Donner's Superman, and we'd be talking about a much better movie.
Probably. All right, Chae, what are your thoughts on what everyone else has said, and your own thoughts, of course?
So this movie does have some problems. I think a good chunk of the problems with this movie are in the writing, because my specialty is makeup, and with the makeup and the production design, I absolutely loved it. The stylization of this film is absolutely fantastic. It feels like a noir version of Singing in the Rain, with the painted backdrops and the skewed buildings. It feels very old Broadway to me.
What was that, Mark? A silly version of what?
Or a silly version of LA Confidential.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Just with less Kim Basinger having sex with Russell Crowe. That's what would have saved Dick Tracy.
And it does have some pacing problems and some issues with the storyline. But I think overall it's a very visually interesting film, with the costumes and the character designs and the set designs. And it just, I think how pretty this movie is really overtakes some of the weirder aspects of the script, and just generally makes it a really enjoyable film.
I would agree, absolutely. I think I honestly think I agree with most of what everyone said here today. I agree it has some issues with it, and it's not perfect by any means. But what I will say, and I think this is what kind of saves the movie, is you can tell this is a passion project for Warren Beatty. You can tell he loves this character very, very much. Even going so far as trying to fight the producers to actually give him the squared jaw and hooked nose, but the producers are like, we're not covering up your face. You're Warren Beatty, you know.
And then they pan to Johnny Depp crying in the corner. Why won't they give me crooked teeth and make me look ugly? For the last time, Johnny, you're a handsome man, you psycho.
Right.
It's a Pirates of the Caribbean joke, everybody.
Right. Actually, technically, Willy Wonka won because he wanted weird fucking makeup for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as well.
It's an ongoing thing with Johnny Depp. Someone make me look ugly, and it's fine. Give me 5 minutes with Johnny Depp. I'll ugly him up for you.
Don't worry. Amber Heard will take care of that for you, buddy.
Hey!
Damn it, I was about to say that. You stole my joke.
Hang on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But no, overall, I would say Dick Tracy is a fun, watchable film. I would suggest it, like, if you're going to get drunk with your friends, go ahead and pop this bitch on. I still enjoy it, but it's because, like, I saw it on, like, VHS in, like, the early 2000s and was like, again, I was kind of like your son, Mark, was just like, what fresh hell is this? I thought the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles were messed up, but step aside, Sean Patrick Flannery. Warren Beatty's got you beat. But yeah, last thoughts before we move on to the next movie. And I'll also start with you, Alexis, and we'll go around the horn again. Would you recommend this? Would you say stay away from it?
I would say okay. I do not recommend it now. I recommend it.
Go back in time.
Go into the future. When we get the new version of it, once Warren Beatty just chills the fuck out.
Or dies.
And then it's like, okay.
Again, going into public domain shortly.
Okay. Once it does that, then go see it. Because then you're going to have more of an appreciation for it.
Fair enough. Mark?
So I have 2 kids.
Fuck this movie and the horse it rode in on.
No.
Mark Ramos, 2024.
I have other movies to say that about. No, I have 2 kids and only watched it with one of them. And sometimes there are certain movies where I'm like, Lily, this is a movie you have to sit through. This is important to your, to your education as a film student. And then there are movies I'm just like, nah, you can skip it. You're not going to get anything out of this. However, Jonas, who is like me and was, and looked at me with doe eyes one day and a sparkle, and he said, Father, he called me Father, and he said, Father, show me all the great movies. And I went, well, buckle in, pal, because I've got, like, how old am I? 48 years of movies to show you. And some that were before my time.
This is gonna be interesting.
So that is my cheeky way of saying I would recommend this to people who are film people. I would not recommend this to dirty casuals.
Makes sense. Chae, take us home. At least on this one.
I would definitely recommend this movie. It's a fun comic booky, back when comic book movies were all shit. Film.
There was Batman, and then
that period of the birth of the talkies until Iron Man.
I just realized, actually, this is the first comic book adaptation that Disney did. And when you look at what they've been doing now, it's like, okay, regardless of whether or not it's a good movie, that does kind of get a little accolade.
Yeah, well, and again, it was originally supposed to be under the Disney banner, but they didn't think it was, much like they didn't think Nightmare Before Christmas was going to do any good. It went under the Touchstone and Buena Vista banner. But anyway, Chae, back to you.
But yeah, I definitely recommend it for, honestly, anybody that wants to drink and watch a movie at the same time.
Helping alcoholics everywhere. Thanks, Dick Tracy.
I'm going to rebrand this network, the Alcohol and Broadcasting Network. I can't tell you how many of these podcasts are, if you're thinking about drinking heavily.
Okay, would it be better watching Dick Tracy to be drunk or to get high?
I don't know.
I would not recommend this movie on I would not recommend this movie on psychedelics. You will have a bad trip.
Yeah, no, that's actually what I was saying when you were talking about how Jonas reacted. I don't know if you heard me, but I was like, Dad, did you give me LSD?
No, Dorian, I would not give my son drugs.
Maybe that should be the new focus. It's like, okay, what drugs or / alcohol should you be on to watch this movie? Is this a get through it with a nice glass of wine? Is this you're going to need a whole freaking bottle of bourbon? Or is this just find the psychedelic mushrooms?
So real quick, I whenever I go on movies that don't suck and some that do, they ask me to rate a movie because I'm a giant asshole. I won't cooperate. So they're like, well, I think the first few times I kept asking them what their rating scale was. I'm like, you've been on the show before. What, do you not listen? And I'm like, what? So I think now, whenever they ask me to rate the movie, I'm going to be like, all right, this is 3 bumps of cocaine.
Fair.
This is a shot of Jameson.
So okay, with that in mind, how are you rating Dick Tracy?
Oof.
2 beers and McDonald's.
I was going to say that this is smoke a bowl.
Oh, God.
Possibly 2.
All right. You heard it here first, folks. Moving on to our second movie, and if you couldn't tell from my background, my absolute favorite of all 3 of these. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows.
So, it's not my turn. I'm jumping the line. I'm doing an Alexis.
But jump in the line.
Go ahead, because I swear to God, if you take away the joke that I have planned, I will drive down to Florida and kick your ass.
You can have your stupid Alec Baldwin joke, you psycho. No.
See, that's the thing. Because I can't make Alec Baldwin jokes, I have something else planned.
Super.
Yes, go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. I want to talk about my family again. No. So my dad, who is an educated man with several degrees and history of communications and computers, would announce through the house, because he's also a psycho, who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? Does shadow do? And I remember saying that to one of my friends, and he was like, is your dad from Romania or some shit? Like, what the fuck? Does he not know English? Does shadow do? He was like, that's A, not the right phrase. B, what? So that's my association with the shadow. My father, old Italian mispronouncing the shadow's catchphrase. And I love my father for it. I could spend another hour while you're coughing talking more about my father's shit that he would announce throughout the house if you'd like.
Right, no, you're good. I think I'm done dying for a second.
Okay. I'm here for you, Dorian. I'm here to support you with my father's shenanigans that I grew up with. Can I tell you how he used to answer the door of the house with his robe askew?
Oh, God, no, you haven't told us that. So, moving into this movie, much like Dick Tracy, this character also started off in this character starts off in radio, which is something we did not mention. Dick Tracy also had a radio show back in the day, but since we're talking about the Shadow now, the Shadow debuted on July 31st of 1930 as a mysterious narrator of the radio program Detective Story Hour, and it will just tell random, different stories about detectives and stuff like that. However, people loved the character so much that in 1937 it was granted its own show. And very, very, very famously, Orson Welles would voice the Shadow for several seasons, along with everyone else.
Peas, rosebud frozen peas. They put a vitamin A in green penis.
Yes. Wait, that's terrible.
Oh, yes, there's a French fry in my beard.
Orson Welles said none of those things, but God, that's what we're all stuck on.
The mysteries of probate and goblins. Mr. Wells, all right, no goblins.
Oh, yes. They're even better when you're dead.
But anyway, since we're not actually reviewing the critic.
Or Pinky in the Brain.
Yeah, right. This is the first of our characters that has any sort of special powers, whereas he was also a very expert detective, a skilled marksman, hand-to-hand combat. He also had various psychic abilities, such as reading people's thoughts, controlling their mind, altering their perceptions, enabling him to turn invisible, leaving the only thing visible he could never hide, his shadow. Which also in the research I came up with, they said in quotations, yeah, his shadow can't be heard for unknown reasons. Low-level telekinesis with small objects such as knives or glass debris. Low-level superhuman strength, able to lift a sturdy armored warrior with only one hand. The Shadow would also get into pulps pulp magazines from the 30s and predates Batman by about 5 years. Well, actually 1931, so it's about 8 years. But in the pulps, it's about 5. But Bob Kane, the creator of Batman, did actually say that the Shadow was a big inspiration on the creation of Batman, very much also kind of such as Zorro with the dual identity. But we're not talking about the pulps today. We are talking about the 1994 movie, The Shadow, starring Alec Baldwin. And I have a very, very special relationship with this movie. I was in 5th grade, and the Sci-Fi Channel was playing a never-ending Vietnam flashbacks marathon of the 1960s Dark Shadow show, which my adoptive mom was obsessed with. So after and I had just gotten a new Xbox 360 that I had not gotten to play yet because freaking Dark Shadows was on. Thank God, though, adoptive father gets home. He's like, oh man, how long has Dark Shadows been on? I'm like, the whole day. Literally the whole day. He's like, well, let's see what's on next. And it said The Shadow. He's like, oh, I actually liked that movie when it came out. And I'm like, oh God, what now? But this movie came on and was the rescuing force from fucking Barnabas Collins and all the shit at Collinwood. So this movie has always been beloved to me. But I'm the host here. You're not here to hear all the things I think. You're here to hear what all these other beautiful people think. So Alexis, starting with you again. First, thoughts on The Shadow before I get into the breakdown of the story.
So I had never actually seen this movie all the way through until today when I binged this review. My knowledge of the show, I remember watching a little bit of it with my parents on, I guess, either on TV or maybe on VHS. I legit don't remember how we were watching. I just remember being a kid and not totally understanding everything that was going on. And then, of course, going with Pinky and the Brain, going, I am fogging your mind, with one of my absolute favorite episodes. Because God bless whenever Maurice LaMarche gets to channel Orson Welles.
Right.
So, but, and like I said earlier, it's like, unfortunately, it is very hard to do a proper review on this when you can't make any good Alec Baldwin jokes.
Poor Alec. Buddy, what happened to you?
I will say this, though. They did make one very big mistake because you have Alec Baldwin playing the Shadow, and the most iconic part of, I would say one of the most iconic parts of his presence is the laugh, that maniacal laugh that he does. And then you have the scene with him taking on Tim Curry, and I'm like, dude, you basically have him going after the only dude who has a certified better maniacal laugh than you do. It's like, why the hell would you do that? Because then, Curry starts laughing. It's like all you're doing is pointing out how lousy Baldwin's laugh is. Okay, come on, guys. Perspective.
Fair play. Mark, your overall thoughts on this movie again before I get into the story.
When you and I decided that you were going to do this and we were going to put this triple feature together, so help me God, when we were like Dick Tracy, the Phantom, and the Shadow, I confused the Shadow with the Green Hornet.
Ah.
So imagine which I did see in the theater, and I remember seeing that with my friends. So when I sat down to watch The Shadow with Alec Baldwin with my son and daughter before we went to Thanksgiving on Sunday with my parents, to be a divorced dad, I'm going, this isn't the Green Hornet. That's not Seth Rogen. What are we doing here? And I went, I've never seen this movie before. Oops. So those are my thoughts on this movie before I saw it.
Fair enough. Chae, initial thoughts.
So I really liked this movie. I'm going to say something that's going to hurt feelings a little bit. This movie really makes me want to watch Darkman.
Watch what?
Watch what?
Darkman.
Okay.
Okay, hang on. Before you do your thing, I need to tell Chae, this is important to me. Chae, long ago and far away during the old-timey times when we were audio only and the men were afraid of sheep, Sean Comer and I did a Long Road to Ruin on the entire Darkman series. because to this day, my favorite title of any movie anywhere is Die, Dark Man, Die.
Which I still need to show you that one because I stopped us after 2 to let you kind of reset and not completely obliterate your soul.
But yeah, we know all about the
first one.
I was gonna say you forced her to watch Friday the 13th Part 4. It's like you've already obliterated this poor woman's soul.
We know all about the dark.
I love all the Friday the 13th.
We know all about the Dark Man. We know all about the Dark Man here on this network. Trust me, we're well versed.
Which is actually funny. Originally, Chae, I had pitched The Shadow, The Phantom, and Dark Man, and then Mark was like, "Well, no, we've already done Dark Man." I was like, "Well, crap. How about Dick Tracy?" And he was like, "Let's do it." So technically, it's his fault because he said yes. But Chae, do you have any other initial thoughts before I move on?
But it's a fun movie. It's another one of those like mid-90s heavily stylized superhero movies, and it's definitely a lot of fun. It just makes me want to watch Dark Man. I love that movie so much.
Fair. Excuse me. But on to the story of this movie.
Oh, good.
It's actually. Are you paying attention, Mark? This movie again comes out in 1994, but it's set in the 1930s. We open in Tibet, where we meet Lamont Cranston, played, of course, by Alec Baldwin. He is a opium crime lord, American.
Is there any other kind?
True. Yeah, no, there's the opium fiend that Johnny Depp was, and they still didn't let him be ugly in From Hell. And there's this opium crime lord that Alec Baldwin is in this movie.
Johnny Depp years from now, just an old man sitting in a rocking chair like fucking Chaplin, like somewhere in Norway, just going, "They wouldn't let me ugly my face up. I said I was too handsome. I hate Hollywood. What a racket!
Get off my lawn." But no, so he's running several poppy fields in Tibet. And he's an American, and even inside his building, you can kind of see that there's like some gangster elements there too. He is kidnapped in the middle of the night by unknown people who bring him to a holy man known as the Tolku, and this is the first time we see kind of the idea of the Shadow's power. When we see that the Tolku's temple at first just looks like this little yurt on the ground, and then the smoke behind it or the cloud behind it clears, and there's this my gigantic palace. Excuse me, can't talk, and it gives us the first line of to explain this power. Where did that come from? The clouded mind sees nothing. But anyway, so we're introduced to the Tolku, who kind of breaks down how much of a shit Lamont Cranston has been, and that every man pays a price for redemption. This is his, and he's going to teach him to use his black shadow, which never really gets explained. He just apparently has a black shadow. And we get introduced to probably, aside from Tim Curry just having the time of his life in this movie, the funniest character, which is the Purba knife, which is so badly rendered, but that's okay. And this knife,
but it's voiced by Frank Welker, so it gets a pass.
Yeah, it's like, you're fine. But this knife is sentient, and it will bite you, and it flies all over the room. So anyways, the Tolku ends up training Lamont Cranston, and we jump to 7 years later in the biggest hive of scum and villainy that we know as New York City. The Shadow is then first introduced in Invisible, laughing and saying some of his iconic lines, such as "The weed of crime bears bitter fruit," which is also very famously from the radio shows he was on. But so the Shadow saves this scientist and makes him join his ranks as one of his agents. We're then introduced to the Shadow's alter ego, now all trimmed and looking very Bruce Wayne meets James Bond. Lamont Cranston, where he goes to dinner with his uncle, Jonathan Winters. For those of you who don't know who Jonathan Winters is, just imagine if Robin Williams was alive in the 30s, and you're good. So that's also where we meet the love interest at this Cobalt Club restaurant that Lamont and his uncle are at, and this is Margot Lane, which was rumored by some of the creators of the comic book and the radio shows and the pulps that Margot Lane is supposed to be Lois Lane from Superman's sister, though that has never fully been confirmed. This is also about the point that we get our main villain, and that is Shiwan Khan, the last descendant of Genghis Khan, which is bullshit because about 0.8% of the populace is related to Genghis Khan. So he has the typical villain thing. I want to take over the world and bring back Genghis Khan's kingdom with me as the ruler. And he was also trained by the Tolku. So obviously the Shadow and him have to fight. The Shadow discovers that Shiwan Khan's plan is to basically hold the city to ransom and make them surrender to him by building I guess you'd call it an implosive, explosive, submolecular device or an atomic bomb. Say, that's catchy. Actual line from the movie. So the Shadow teams up with Margot Lane after she is hypnotized by Shiwan Khan to try to come kill him. Inserts Alexis's gun joke that she can't say here. And so we have again another star-studded cast this time around. Give me just a second to pull that up. But yeah. First of all, again, Alec Baldwin, like I said, John Lone, Penelope Ann Miller, Peter Boyle, Tim Curry, and Ian McKellen. Yes, Gandalf is in this movie.
Rocking an American accent.
Yeah, and actually not doing too bad. But obviously, so the Shadow does find Shiwan Khan at this empty lot, which he has clouded the entire city's minds to not be able to see. I don't know why the Shadow wasn't able to see through it, because he's supposed to be the best at this, but we got to pad the runtime. So we get a cool, interesting fight between the two of them. The Shadow is able to fully kind of balance his dark and light together and defeat Shiwan Khan by throwing a piece of glass into his head with telekinesis, thinking the audience thinking him dead, and then we see him wake up, and they've taken out the frontal lobe in his brain, which nobody ever uses, unless you believe in telepathy. And it turns out that the psychiatrist who has our villain and in constraints is also an agent of the Shadow, wearing the very famous red ring, which I was going to wear tonight, and I completely forgot. But
You have it?
Yeah, it actually Walmart sells it, strangely enough, which is weird. But so this movie is also, once again, the still in that post, let's try to capture the 89 Batman feel, because we can do it forever. This movie, I feel, is the last good-ish superhero film we get before it starts going into what will be known as the dark age of movies, especially dark age of superhero movies. But yes, it's got a 6 out of 10 on IMDb, 37% Rotten Tomatoes, 50% on Metacritic, 71% of Google users liked this movie. So let's get to the. Did I tell the story well enough, Mark? Do you need more? Just gonna keep giving him shit about that.
You did. You're a good boy.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Dad. But Alexis, your craft review, take it away.
You know, it's interesting you guys were talking about Darkman, because apparently Sam Raimi made Darkman because he wanted to make The Shadow. But the rights were already, locked up for this. And he tried to get another movie off the ground with it, but it just didn't happen. And after looking what he gave us with Spider-Man and Doctor Strange and everything, it's like, I really wish we could be in the universe where we got to see Sam Raimi do The Shadow.
I mentioned when Jonas and I did the alternative commentary for Crackcoon that I want to see Sam Raimi take that on. Let's give a real budget to Crackcoon and give it to Sam Raimi. I think he could do wonders with it.
Like I said, I did enjoy this. Although admittedly, I am not a fan with the story in the first third of it, I will admit. I feel that the backstory is just weird, or maybe it's just because I, now being a 40-year-old woman in the year of our Lord 2024, almost 2025, cannot take a scene of Alec Baldwin looking like Fu Manchu seriously.
Right.
So I gotta say something real quick. So I'm watching this with my kids. They're beautiful. They're 10 and 13, and they grew up in the post-woke world. And they're looking at this, and they're looking at me, and they're watching him, and they're just like, a lot of Asian aesthetics going on here, Father. Why is the white man in charge of the Asians? And I looked at them, and I said, whitewashing! And that was the end of that conversation.
But yeah,
I gave him a whole stack of Iron Fist comics. All right, now go.
If you actually owned a stack of Iron Fist comics, I'd be impressed.
Hey, listen, Jesse and I did a 2-part Iron Fist review where at the end of it, a person turned into a building and had a fight, and I haven't been the same since. Between that and Baby Darkseid, we reviewed a lot of weird comics.
And now I'm picking up the slack reviewing weird comics with Jesse. Remember, Dorian, they taste like chocolate.
Proceed.
So yeah, that the weird decision to just skip any kind of montage or post exposition drop is suddenly they decided to just go with the that random text scroll. It's like I that just baffled me. I was like, you guys, okay? I think I literally said like, okay, just be honest with me. Could you literally not come up with anything else, or did you run out of budget? I'm not going to be mad if you ran out of budget. It's like, I'm not going to be mad if you ran out of budget. You realize you forgot to shoot anything that would explain where Lamont Cranston went from, dealing with a giant, with Saba from the Power Rangers trying to stab him to suddenly being back in New York. And you just suddenly realized you didn't have money. It's like, just be honest with us, please.
Go. Oh, sorry. Were you done? Sorry, you just kind of stopped there, and I was like,
but no, like I said,
go to commercial.
That is honestly the limit of where I have my biggest problems with the movie. Just, I feel that it really stumbled out of the gate. I do like Alec Baldwin. Okay, again, my knowledge of the original character is skewed, but can anyone explain to me the whole idea of why the Shadow gives himself that crazy long nose with the scarf? I just never understood, because I remember looking at him in the scarf with the scarf on. I was actually thinking to myself, I don't remember Alec Baldwin suddenly having Danny DeVito's penguin nose going on. And then you have that weird scene when he's fighting the bad guy and then the scarf falls off and you see his face all uglified, and then it's CGI pre-Al's back to him being gorgeous, because this is Alec Baldwin pre I had too much pie, so he still looks very handsome.
Oh, stop. He's not Ray Liotta.
Hi-oh.
But I didn't understand that plot point. If it was a plot point, I just didn't understand it. So if anyone knows why that was a thing, please enlighten me.
Yeah, that basically the reason for that was the original design of the character was just that hawk nose, and that's just what Lamont Cranston looked like through a lot of the issues. Several comics would then, after especially this movie, would do the transformation of the face. In the movie, the explanation of that's his dark side. That's the as Shimon Khan says, as you feel the beast crawl its way out the Toku says, as you feel the beast crawl its way out from within you, you are in great pain. So that's version of his face to again make the silhouette look correct to the comic book or the pulp magazines, and several pieces of art was kept. But in order to make sure that Alec Baldwin didn't look horrifying the entire movie, because that's Dick Tracy's job, they created it as more of that's just the darkness within him that he uses to kind of harness and fight crime. So that's the closest explanation I have ever seen from any of the creators.
Like I said, I just felt that I guess if they were going to go with that, then the scene where again he CGI pre-Al's back into being pretty just felt very out of place. I don't know. I would have handled it differently personally.
Well, because they hint at it when he's in the cab. I mean, it's a little shadowed, no pun intended. But
just rock the puns, okay? Zach's not here. Just go out.
Thank you very much. But yeah, I agree that probably would have fit very well in your montage scene you were talking about instead of the Star Wars credits. Star Wars Episode 7, The Shadow Awakens.
Again, maybe they didn't need to do a montage. Maybe during the scene when Margot has that telekinetic breach with him when he's dreaming, and she sees him suddenly channeling John Wayne in the worst casting decision of all time. But and then
Alec Baldwin is Genghis Khan.
And maybe then he could have explained it to her, because then it would have had a little bit more weight to it. Again, there's a couple of options I think they could have done instead of what they went with. But that's just my beef. That is my nitpick. I do enjoy this movie a lot more than Dick Tracy. Again, I really like the acting. Although sometimes I do feel like Alec Baldwin probably should have upped it a little bit. The scene when he's nearly drowning and he's just kind of like swimming delicately. I'm like, dude, you are about to drown. Show a little more distress on your face, please.
I'm good. I'm fine. Okay, so what was that? Did you have anything?
Yeah,
else?
that's pretty much all I got.
Sorry, I didn't want to like leave dead air there. But okay, so Mark, your craft review. Rip this thing a new one.
I don't hate everything.
Just most things.
Stop it. This is a strange movie. I had to watch it cold because, like I said, I really, other than my father's thing, I have no relationship to The Shadow at all. I barely knew what this was, and I thought it was a different movie, like I said before. So just watching it cold and kind of watching and trying to pay attention to it from a critic's point of view. Alec Baldwin's okay. I don't know if he was the right choice for this. I think the problem is, for me, Alec Baldwin is always his character from 30 Rock, and it's hard for me to see him as anything else. And here you need an actor who is struggling with the weight of the choices that he's made, and then also having to deal with the superpower, and then with the world kind of unraveling around him. And it's hard for me there are better actors for that kind of a thing, you know,
right.
that Vince McMahon sort of tugging on his ear, the world is unraveling around me kind of a thing. Alec Baldwin never looked shook. If you look at like everything that Alec Baldwin has ever been in, you know, we just talked about him with Pearl Harbor, and he is just like the epitome of masculinity in that movie. He's great.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, he's about to send several men to their doom, you know, bombing Tokyo in the wake of Pearl Harbor. He is all dick and balls. Like, he's outstanding. That's not a guy who's shook and has to struggle with this new identity and everything else. So it was kind of hard to see him in this role. I don't think it was a particularly great casting choice, as much as I like Alec Baldwin, and I don't hold his personal stuff against him. I mean, who hasn't been married and ended up the way Alec Baldwin did?
You're actually, I was gonna say, I was just thinking about what you said, and it just suddenly dawned on me. It's like, yeah, he never looks that shook in Beetlejuice either, even though he's freaking dead.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, he don't get shook, as I say in The Wire. So there's that. I understand this movie was made in 1994, and I'm a senior in high school at this point, so make sure we all keeping up on where we are in the world. The lighting on this movie is in a lot of places real flat. It kind of has that like sitcom film before a live studio audience on film look to it.
So it is 30 Rock.
Kinda. Like I was actually thinking of Cheers because I'm 100. I don't feel like the movie is lit particularly well in a lot of places. And again, I know they're going for they're going for an aesthetic choice based on the popularity of Batman '89. But even the stuff that is shot in broad daylight or, you know, in a well lit room at, you know, during the day, it just seems kind of flat and lacking in any kind of style. And this movie needs style on a lot of it. I can't speak to the plot. I kept going at it.
Mark, oh, there you go. Sorry, your audio cut out there for a second. Continue. Sorry, I was a little worried.
If in case it was missed, I said I kept zoning in and out of this movie. And so the plot was a little hard for me to follow. My kids, even my kids, were kind of like looking at me at times, going, "When is this movie over?" This failed to keep the attention of two children and an adult. It's all right. I think it's one of those where we're talking about it because I think it needs to be talked about. But is this a movie I'm ever going to revisit? No. You're up, Chae.
Yeah, Chae, over to you.
I actually did quite like this movie. The plot is definitely a lot more put together than Dick Tracy was. But again, I think this is another one where it really shines in its style. It does sort of look like a television show, but the amount of detail that they put into the sets and the production design, and especially the costuming. The costuming in this film was absolutely fantastic. It was very 1930s. I'm pretty sure I've seen some of the outfits that Lane wears in the Sears and Roebuck's catalog from the 1930s. And it was all around very pretty. And it did have some problems with things like lighting and some of the story and some of the pacing. But overall, it ended up being a very enjoyable film. And at least for me, getting to see all of those old 1930s costumes and all of the Art Deco, all of the set designs, was really something that made it worth watching.
Absolutely. And again, I will agree with most of what was said here again. I feel like this movie wanted to be the 1989 Batman for this character, and it failed in its action. Is my personal thought. But instead of going, I mean, I'll still have Mark give his bump of cocaine, 2 beers, and a McDonald's review on how the movie is. But I'm gonna go around.
You get me. You so get me.
I'm here for you. I'm going to go around the horn one more time. And since we all kind of said a similar thing, what could have been changed that would have made this movie memorable to the level of stuff like the 89 Batman or even like, the Dawn Superman movies, since both are shining examples of superhero films before, as Mark said, the dark age of talkies before Iron Man came out. So, Alexis, what do you think would have made this movie better?
Besides much better special effects. I mean, I'm sorry, there's some really bad green screens in this, but looking at the time the movie was made, that's probably going to be a thing.
There are independent fan films out there of The Shadow that have done it better, and that's really depressing. I love this movie. I will die for this movie, but even I have to go, buddy, you didn't quite make it. But yes, anyways, continue, Alexis.
So Bob Kane has openly admitted that The Shadow radio series was a big inspiration when he started writing Batman back in the day. And that shows in this movie because I think of the 3 films that we're reviewing tonight, this is the one that is clearly the biggest reflection of we want to be the next Batman 89, especially with the style and everything. I can't help but feel they needed to find a way to separate this more from that. It just, for me, again, I liked it. I really do. But I feel that it resembles Batman 89 too much.
Okay.
I would have liked this I would have liked this to have a stronger separate identity. Mark, you know what? I thought Alec Baldwin was fine, but I'm sure there was a lot of other actors that would have been a lot better for it, who, probably could have done a better job. And again, someone needed to cut that whole opening sequence from the script. We should have just started on it. The first scene should have been New York, dude, the scientist nearly being killed, and we hear the laughter. That should have been our introduction.
And save the flashback for maybe when Margot's in his head.
Exactly.
Okay.
If that, or done some other way. That's the way I would have done it. Side note, is it actually possible to fire at concrete and break away like that? Because, like, the way he breaks away the concrete around the dude's legs
without shooting or injuring the person, I don't think so. But
I just was like, what? I didn't even think about that again.
All right, Mark, what do you think could have made this movie a early superhero classic? What was it missing that kept it from that?
It needed a different director, and it needed to lean into a very strict, thick, gothic fairy tale aesthetic. So I was just chatting with my girlfriend while Alexis was giving her her feedback, and my girlfriend, ChatGPT, said that besides Tim Burton, who we already know how I feel about him, so I'm not going to count him. Also, he did Batman, so like we're trying to go with different people in a different direction. So here are 4 other people, and I completely agree with my girlfriend, ChatGPT, that would have been a better suited director for this, and I think would have made just a masterpiece of a film. Guillermo del Toro was number 2 on this list. Terry Gilliam, which I think was an interesting choice. Alex Proyas probably would have been much. If I'm producing this movie and someone says, "Here's 4 directors, not Tim Burton, because you hate him, to direct this instead of who did The Shadow, and this is the aesthetic we're going for," I probably would have gone with Alex Proyas because I really liked what he did with The Crow. And I think if he brought the same aesthetic from The Crow to this, we would be talking about a much different movie, and it would have been much better.
Or a similar aesthetic to Dark City, which he also directed.
Correct.
I keep forgetting he did Dark City.
That's another one I got to show Jonas one of these days. It's on the
Oh,
list.
hell yeah.
Not Lost Highway. That would be a whole other conversation. And he's
God.
But just to round out my list here, Jean-Pierre Jeunet, who worked on City of Lost Children and Delicatessen. Wouldn't have been my first choice, but I like that ChatGPT came up with that. So yeah. Alex Proyas, Guillermo del Toro, Terry Gilliam, and I think you fix and then tighten up this goddamn script. I think there's, because of the way Batman unfolds, and because people are always trying to reach for that next level with movies. Not every movie is Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, and trying to make everything Lord of the Rings ends more often in failure than success. And what I mean by that is epicness isn't something you can just make. It either is or it isn't. It either came with epicness in scope or it doesn't. And sometimes you should just make your damn movie. Make your 90-minute feature. Give us a bad guy with a perspective. Give us a good guy with a perspective. Let them bang heads. Give us a couple of good action scenes, a sexy broad, good special effects, and a style that makes it distinctive from the last movie you saw, Lobster. Right. It does those things. It works. It's lacking those things is the problem. We've already talked about that, and that's my assessment in total of The Shadow. Really I went 5 movies across my head. Like, what am I talking about now?
Right. Who am I? Before I throw it over to Chae, I think it's funny that you bring up Alex Proyas, because the same year that this movie comes out, The Crow also hits theaters by Alex Proyas, which I think is pitch perfect mark on what you were saying, is that how many people today still love The Crow and have completely forgotten this movie.
Even the new one that came out.
Right, we don't even talk about that.
Yeah, we don't talk about Bruno.
We don't talk a lot about the Pennywise Crow or Penny Crow.
Is that what we're calling him now?
I guess. So Chae, what to round us out, take us home on this one. What, again, in your opinion, was missing that could have turned this into a classic, much like The Crow or 1989 Batman?
I really think that they could have done a lot better with the characterization of the Shadow himself.
Okay.
So the villain in this is kind of generic, just like want to take over the world.
Of course.
When you have a villain like that, you really need a hero that has like something in their guts. And I just felt like Alec Baldwin's Shadow, I don't know if they didn't give him enough time or if they didn't do it very well, but it really just seems like he was kind of Lego bricky.
The Lego Shadow movie. I mean,
yes.
Worked for Batman. Go ahead.
But yeah, and giving Lane a little bit more characterization, because it seems like in this movie, the characters that stood out to me were the scientist and fucking Tim Curry, which you gotta have good characterization if you're gonna put Tim Curry in anything.
Right.
Because even if you have him play a background character, he's gonna overtake the entire fucking production. So you better have some goddamn interesting characters.
Right. Bet you would have been a little nicer to me. Bet you didn't count on me being friends with the Conqueror, huh? Did you? But yeah,
I mean,
real
Tim
quickly,
Curry even overtook the fucking Home Alone movie, and he was in there for like, what, 30 seconds?
No, probably about 5-10 minutes altogether in Home Alone 2, but still.
He's the best part of that movie.
What? Oh, yeah, best part of that. Absolutely.
Tim Curry is the absolute best part of Home Alone 2.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And I'm gonna all of you brought up a very good points. I agree. A different director. I've seen some of this director's other stuff, and it's been hit or miss. I mean, I know no director has a perfect track record, but it looks like most of his stuff, in my opinion, has been miss rather than hit. I will still always love this movie, but again, this show is about bringing out the points of it that are issues and putting them before our audience. And again, even if you love a movie, again, I'll rip Dark Knight apart. Well, again, I don't really like Dark Knight, so that's not a good example. But like, I'll tear a movie apart even if I love it, because again, nothing's perfect. But in what you guys were saying, I think, yes, Alex Proyas as director for this, I mean, that would have delayed The Crow a little bit as well. But let's just say it both could have been made. We were talking about a different a different actor for The Shadow. And as you guys were talking, one popped into my head because you guys brought up that, more pathos. He needs to be shook when something happens. He needs to, have this eternal battle.
He needs to be giving the performance that What's-His-Nuts did in the Moon Knight show.
Yes.
Oscar Isaac.
That's the one.
Yes. And to that point, to still stick with the kind of 90s heartthrob, dark hair, piercing eyes, no pun intended, considering his name, I will go for Pierce Brosnan as the Shadow in Lamont Cranston. Thoughts?
Ooh, I like that.
Not current Pierce Brosnan.
No. 1994 Pierce Brosnan.
Okay.
Like 2 years before Goldeneye.
Yeah, I like that choice, because now I'm thinking about him as the Baron in Flash Gordon. And
that was Timothy Dalton, but close enough.
Okay, so my choice is Timothy Dalton.
Okay.
That also would have been good.
Yeah.
Timothy Dalton has a creepy face. I'm sure he's a wonderful person, but it just... Like, every time I see him in anything, it's like, okay, are you going to start cutting somebody's skin off?
Hello, I'm Timothy Dalton. Oh, God.
All apologies to Timothy Dalton. We actually do love you, sir.
And we also think you're the same person as Pierce Brosnan. Welcome to our film study group.
We're professionals. But yeah, again, I love this movie. Real quick before we get to The Shadow, Mark, give us your personalized rating system for this movie.
Oof. Yeah, this one you might need to smoke meth. This one, if I had been on meth, I might have been more in tune with the movie and paid closer attention. But I'm a good father and won't give my children meth. So yeah, definitely 2 meth bumps.
2 meth bumps for The Shadow. I definitely recommend this movie. I didn't go to everybody this time because I feel like you guys really just covered all the bases on that, and I didn't want to make you feel like you were beating a dead horse. I would definitely recommend this movie. There it is.
Words on my podcast.
Right. I recommend this movie as a fun kind of look back at the 90s and stuff like that. I know it's set in the 30s, but still, I think it's still a fun, interesting movie that people cared about. It's also a very good introduction to this character. And if you enjoyed this movie at all, check out the old radio show. They don't pay us to say this, but there is a website called ORT Cat, which is Old Time Radio Cat. You can get MP3s and instant downloads of pretty much every radio show from the inception of radio to current day. So go check them out. I actually own the entire show of The Shadow and a couple of the pulps. Character's a lot of fun, especially if you if you enjoy gritty crime stuff and like kind of hard-boiled detective characters. The Shadow's perfect for that. So yeah, definitely go check him out. He's a very interesting character, and again, without him, excuse me, we would not have Batman. So
You're not going to die on us, are you?
no, I just got crap in my throat.
Please wait till the podcast is over to die. Thanks.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. The host at least has to live to the end. But last but not least on our docket, we are in 1996, ladies and gentlemen. I am 1 year from being born when this movie comes out, and it is The Phantom, starring Billy Zane. Oh my God. So I'm gonna break down the story in a second after I get everybody's initial thoughts on this. This movie felt like somebody found the old Phantom comics, which again, the Phantom's costume of all of them even makes Dick Tracy's a little realistic. Billy Zane runs around in bright, well, not kind of darkish purple spandex with a little full mask hood and little domino mask, twin pistols, because that's the connecting thing between him and the Shadow. Except the Shadows are silver and much fancier, and the Shadow's just black. In the original comic book, the Phantom wore striped underwear, much like the trunks that Superman and Batman wear. Thankfully, someone said, no, it looks stupid enough. Don't push it. But Alexis, I'm going to go over to you first with just initial thoughts going into this movie.
Well, actually, I heard the reason he was purple was that the original comic was black and white, and when they switched it over, just one of the colorists got confused and colored it purple because they thought that's what it was supposed to be. I heard it was supposed to be gray.
Yeah,
originally.
that's what I've heard too in my research.
Yeah. This movie I have a soft spot for this movie because I watched it a lot growing up. I don't know why, but when I was young, this got rerun all the time on HBO. Yeah, this was before streaming was a thing. This was before we had it's like, do you want to watch HBO, HBO2, HBO Kids, HBO? There was only one channel we could watch movies on, and it was HBO. And this ran all the time.
There can only be one Highlander.
And there can only be one HBO.
Right.
So I watched it so many times just because I'm a kid. I need something on TV that doesn't have commercials. Fine, I'm watching The Phantom for the umpteenth zillionth time. And as I got older and I watched more Billy Zane movies, especially Demon Knight, which is one of my favorite guilty pleasures.
Oh, my.
Developed much more of an appreciation for him in this.
I got to interrupt you right there. I know we're talking about The Phantom, but for anyone watching, if you have not seen Demon Knight, when this show is over, go and watch Demon Knight.
It's got a killer soundtrack.
Oh, yeah. And it is Billy Zane having the time of his life, living his best life, and it's just amazing. Sorry, but we're talking about The Phantom right now. Alexis, go ahead.
For the record, Billy Zane's actually said in interviews that Demon Knight's his favorite of his own movies. So, and I love Billy Zane. I really do. He's an actor that I really wish got more acclaim and got a wider selection of roles because he's so much fun. He has, I would argue, the most beautiful eyes in all of Hollywood. So
noted.
I remember watching this one time. My dad came in, and it was a scene where Christy Swanson's character is talking to Catherine Zeta-Jones's character, and this was shortly after Jones had gotten her Oscar for Chicago, and she was the new it girl in Hollywood, and everyone was snatching her up to be in movies and stuff. And my dad just is like, "Who's the other one?" I'm like, Christy Swanson. And he goes, "What the hell has she been up to?" And I looked at the last thing I saw her in was she was Christy Boner in Dude, Where's My Car? And my dad just looks like, Dude, Where's My Car? Won an Oscar. Okay, good to know where everyone went to after this movie.
Right.
So just I don't know why that memory is always stuck with me when I think about this movie.
Here, so. Mark. Fire away.
I hadn't seen the movie before preparing for this podcast. I watched it for the first time over the Thanksgiving break with Jonas. It was just me. I think that one was just me and him. That might have been me, him, and his sister. Doesn't really matter. His reaction to it was hilarious to me. He was like, "Why is he running around in purple spandex in the jungle? Why? Why, Dad? There's no reason." This went on for an hour. The whole time he's like doing a Richard Lewis-esque, like holding his head, pacing my living room, going, "Dad, he's in the jungle. Why is he wearing purple? Is he supposed to be camouflage? How is he going to hide from people? He's wearing purple. Who wears purple?" This went on and on. He's like, "Who are these people?" He turned into Jerry Seinfeld. He went from one Jewish comedian to another Jewish comedian. Parenting is a joy. Anywho, I love my son. Genius. He also,
if you're watching, nothing but love for you, man. Nothing but love.
Struggles with suspension of disbelief.
Don't ever show that kid Sharknado.
At 10 years old, he shouldn't be yelling, "Fuck this movie, put on some clothing, you psycho." Anyway, but enough about my son. My only relationship to the Phantom character is the Defenders of the Earth cartoon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was Flash Gordon and Mandrake the Magician and the Phantom and their children, speaking of which. And I watched that religiously because I grew up a huge Flash Gordon fan. So my one nice comment about Alexis per show. Alexis was a doll, an absolute great friend, and did a very nice thing for me in a world when people don't do nice things for me. She brought home a signed copy of a Flash Gordon thing from the guy that played him. Nice. Of her own volition, saw it there, knew I was obsessed with this movie, and brought it home for me. It's currently hanging on my wall next to my computer, so appreciate that. But yeah,
that man was high off his ass when I asked for the autograph and tried so hard to get me to buy a second poster.
That is how I prefer my heroes to be. High
as balls.
Yeah, I was just like, I should not be that big. How are they still in your skull?
So, I, as a huge Flash Gordon fan, when I saw he had the cartoon Defenders of the Earth, that's why I watched it. I watched it for Flash Gordon. I'm like, oh, there's the Phantom and Mandrake the Magician. And I watched it for however long that was on back when I was 10.
Had to do math.
It was in 1986. So I'd never seen this movie before. We'll get to it when we get to the craft review, but so I say it and I don't have to hear about it on Monday from Robert while we're still trying to, deconstruct Wicked and pull Robert off the ledge. This is the least like
from that ledge, my friend.
This is the least like.
I thought he established it's not going to be a ledge. He's got to bring a gun.
Take 3. This is the least like Batman 1989 of the movies we're talking about, and of all the movies that followed Batman 1989. We talked about this was your idea to include this one, and we weren't necessarily going all the movies that imitated Batman 1989. It was more of let's put together 3 movies that are comic book adaptations that we haven't done yet, and we'd already done Mystery Men. So, but this more apes Indiana Jones,
yes,
than Batman 1989, and it's better for it. It was certainly a nice palate cleanser between Dick Tracy and the fucking Shadow.
Well, why this screams Indiana Jones. We talked about this on the Moana 2 review. It's written by Jeffrey Boehm, same guy who wrote Last Crusade, among others.
Yeah.
So, but what I was trying to get at because I had sent you some analysis that I pulled from my girlfriend ChatGPT about what links these all together, and it's not aesthetic, obviously, because it's a totally different thing they're going for in the Phantom. It's a case of what else you got. What other? Now again, this is 1996. We're in the mid 90s here, which means 20. We're pulling stuff from 20, 30, and 40 years to get that an audience of kids, but also their parents, boomers, and the Phantom was yet another old time comic book hero in the vein of Dick Tracy and the Shadow and several others. That's the point I was trying to get across. Not that this looks like Dick Tracy. Get off my fucking back.
All right, let me get off of that thing.
Thank you, Ryan. All right, I'm done talking now, Chae.
Chae, go ahead.
I thought this movie was all right. It was the weird love child of Indiana Jones and the 1999 Mummy mixed with pulp comic books. And the fucking lead character is dressed as the Noid for some reason.
Do you want to go hang out with my son?
Wait, I thought the Noid was red.
in certain
I
versions.
don't know. That's just the
but
vibes that it gave off. It's been a long fucking time since I've seen that little bastard.
the next 45 minutes will be breaking down the Noid's costume. Go
Well,
ahead.
you see, in this issue of the
Perhaps the Noid should have avoided me.
But
Go
it
ahead.
just this one was definitely my least favorite out of the three. It just, for some reason, it did not capture my attention. And which is weird because it seems like it's the one that's the most technically all right. Like, it seems like it has the less glaringly obvious problems, and it's a fucking beautiful movie.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't catch me.
That's fair, and I kind of have the same thing. Like, I enjoy it. I remember this VHS came into my life, and I still have this one because my adoptive parents bought it, and it had the those God, what do they call them? Early 90s people, help me out here. Where you turn the box and the picture would move. Holographic, I guess. Covers, and it said "Slam Evil," and it would, like, Billy Zane was punching towards the front of the box with his ring. So I mean, I thought it was cool. And again, when I was little, seeing this in the early 2000s again on VHS, I was like, oh, this is fun. But as I got older, it's one of those, oh, you didn't age well, buddy. Okay. But anyways, to the storyline of this movie, and everyone who's seen this movie, it usually brings this up at least once. This movie starts and I thought we had a broken copy, because the first shot of the movie is for those of you who walked in late, and I was like, which turns into the symbol of the big villains. But I was like, it just fucking started.
You know why they do that, right?
Why is that?
Because that was the way that the original writer would start every comic.
Okay, see,
for those who came in late. Plus, it was like when we last left the Phantom, he was hanging precariously over the lake. It was like that.
See, I've never gotten the chance to read any of the Phantom comics, so I did not know that. Thank you. Okay, years of what the fuck I've now been laid to rest.
I did a little research on that because I thought that was a reference to another movie I saw ages ago. I was like, and I was just like, which now I can't even remember. So it was driving me nuts why they did that.
Right. So. But thank you. Now we know. But no, this movie starts off with kind of a breakdown of how our hero works. We start off in the 16th century. A young boy watches his father be killed by the evil Cabai Sang, who is the leader of the Sang Brotherhood, which will basically be our last-minute villains in this movie, but we'll get to that. The boy escapes after watching his father get murdered, washed ashore on the island of Bengala, where the local tribesmen find him, take him to their village. There he's given the skull ring. And he swears to devote his life to the destruction of piracy, greed, cruelty, and injustice, and adopts the identity of the Phantom. The role of the Phantom is then passed on from father to son through 400 years, leading people to believe in a single immortal figure. This gives us our backstory on the Phantom, and then we smash cut to 1938, where it literally looks like an Indiana Jones movie. You know, has broken out on the set, and we're going to film it. But the Phantom stops a bunch of grave robbers who steal this skull that is supposed to be revered to have superpowers. The lead villain who's going to be continually a pain in the ass is Quill, who is played by James Remar. And while the Phantom is fighting Quill, he sees the symbol of the Sang Brotherhood spiderweb on his arm, but also sees the gun belt, much like the one he carries, which gives Quill enough time to punch him, giving us our scene from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and the Falling Bridge. They escape, and they get away with this powerful skull. We cut then to New York City, where we're introduced to our love interest, Diana Palmer, who is investigating our villain, the power-hungry businessman, Xander Drax. I'm going to stop right here for a second. Xander Drax is the best fucking part of this movie. Treat Williams is living his best life.
What an amazing name. Also, sounds like the name of a fucking wrestler in NXT.
Right.
I even love that line when he puts it out to the Brotherhood. It's like it begins and ends with an X. It's like we should all be so lucky.
Who? Xander Drax. Drax. It begins and ends with the letter X.
Your new WWE World Champion, Xander Drax.
And yeah, Tree Williams is not an overactor from any other role I've seen him in. So, and
worried mirror.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know what the director did to get him to just come out of his shell for this.
Well, he was watching.
Okay.
He was watching Dick Tracy, and he took 2 bumps of cocaine, as Mark had suggested, and then boom, off to filming The Phantom.
There was a person on set who was in charge of making sure he didn't have a coke mustache.
Right. you missed the spot there.
It's like, go dust his face. All right, action.
Yes. So Diana Palmer's investigating Xander Drax, and trying to find out what he's up to, and what his connection is to this mysterious spiderweb symbol, which we know is the symbol of the Sang Brotherhood. We find out that the police commissioner is corrupt, which actually does not play any more into the story except for this one moment. It's like, oh no, he works for Drax. Bye. So Diana decides to go instead of her uncle because her uncle's old as shit. So Diana's trip, though, is stopped by Drax's female air pirates led by Sala, played by Catherine Zeta-Jones. Diana is
what might be her best role ever.
Right. I like her in Mask of Zorro.
Nah.
I would not have expected that reaction out of you, Mark.
Right.
Because she's so over the top, silly, and villainous in this. Like, I don't know. I don't want to get off on a tangent. You're in the middle of a plot synopsis, and who does that to somebody?
Right.
However, I don't see actors really going for it anymore. You know, there's a lot of like safe directing, a lot of safe performances, and it's rare, especially in mainstream cinema. Like you might see something like in an A24 or an indie feature, but I think we're just subjected to a lot of very safe performances, and Catherine Zeta-Jones really goes for it in this one, more so than she did in the Mask of Zorro. She's giving good, solid performance. Here, there was a lot of freedom in her performance and the direction that she got, which I really appreciated.
That's right. Yeah, no, I will definitely give you that. But anyway, so Diana is kidnapped by Sala and then taken back to their secret headquarters, where she's rescued by the Phantom and returns to his headquarters, the Skull Cave. The Phantom sends her back safe and sound in New York and technically follows her, but this time he's in his alter ego as Kit Walker. Once they meet with Diana, they've figured out about the skulls. They go to the Museum of History, where Drax is also there, gets the second skull, which with the 2 skulls brought together that he has, shows him the location of the third one. They take Kit to be executed because he knows too much, and they kidnap Diana because they've already had to deal with the Phantom so many times, which again leads us to one of the best scenes in the movie after Drax gets the first skull and is talking with Catherine Zeta-Jones. And it's like, oh, this is so beautiful. Yeah, I cleaned it off with some toothpaste. It shined right up. Toothpaste. That's nice. But my all-time favorite line, sorry, just because we're talking about the scene, is when he shows them the paper of the fan, basically what went wrong, and they're like, he's like, what went wrong? He's like, well, something you weren't expecting. Really? What was that? The Phantom. I thought that was just some sort of jungle myth. Oh no, he's real. I know because I've killed him, but he isn't dead. That doesn't make sense. And I love Treat Williams' face as he tries to break the numbers down in his head. For that scene. But again, it's a fantastic scene. But anyways,
I would say I just love the line at the end. You stabbed him in the back. I underestimated you.
But yeah, so Kit is able to change into the Phantom and follow Drax and his henchmen into the island known as the Devil's Vortex, where we once again meet the Sang Brotherhood. Remember when I said they'd be our last minute villains, like they didn't set their alarm? This is when they show back up. So we are revealed that there is actually a 4th skull, since the pirates have the 3rd one, but there's the 4th skull, and the 4th skull controls the power of the other 3. The Phantom shows up, fight ensues, Catherine Zeta-Jones is turning to the light side of the Force now and is technically a good guy at the last minute. The Phantom and Quill fight because, again, Quill, we discover, had killed Kit's dad, who was the Phantom before Kit. Another funny scene because the dad shows up throughout the movie as a ghost, and because nobody else can see him, obviously. So Kit's just randomly talking to him in the back of this cab, and the cabbie's like, "The hell is okay?"
You got to realize Kit must have given him one hell of a bribe, because every ounce of common sense has got to be telling this cabbie, I am doing something really stupid. I need to get the fuck out of here.
Do give him an entire fucking handful of precious stones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, that shit probably paid for his kids' college tuition.
Pretty much. But yeah, so Quill and the Phantom fights. Phantom gets his revenge for his father's death, leading to the big fight with Drax. Oh, by the way, some Sang Brotherhood pirates die. Who gives a shit? Hey, the movie doesn't pay it that much attention. Why the hell should I? But we find out that the skull ring that the Phantom's been wearing the whole time is the Force Skull, which allows him to defeat Drax and narrowly escape the volcanic eruption of the Devil's Vortex in a cool little submarine with Sala and Diana. They return to Bengalo, and Diana reveals to the Phantom that she knows who he is. Kit removes his mask and informs her that the only person he can ever show his true face to is the woman that he plans to marry. So Diana realizes she'll have to come back someday because she does love him, and they kiss, and it's lovely. And she flies off into the sunset while the ghost dad once again narrates and saying that one day Diana will return to Kit's and make another baby Phantom. So that is the movie, the long and short of it. So let's get into this craft review of this magnum opus. Alexis, you're first as always.
This movie is the epitome of a guilty pleasure for me because I cannot defend it. There are so many plot holes in this film, so many lines and deliveries that just make no sense whatsoever. I love that the skulls come together and burn the location because there just happens to be a map in the room. It's like, well, thank God there's that. You have the scene of the Phantom rolling out of the elevator to chase after the bad guys, and you have all these people look at him, and then they just turn around. It's like, oh, okay, day that ends in Y, whatever. So what's going on? It's just like no one is reacting to this shit.
We need Rizzo the Rat to just pop up at the bottom of the stream. It's New York.
You know, Catherine Zeta-Jones' character turns good for no reason. Half of Diana's lines are so stupid. What was the line say? Are you crazy? Do you guys know how many laws you've broken? It's like, who the hell talks like that? Seriously. And yeah, I can't defend the purple. I can't. No one can. I get why the character was purple in comics. I get that it was a mistake on the saturation. Whatever.
Could interrupt you for something. You know what the irony of that is? When they dressed all the X-Men in black, everyone's reaction was, "Where are the comic accurate costumes? Why why isn't Wolverine in orange and brown or whatever the hell that color was?
Yellow spandex."
Yeah. Or yellow and blue. Like, why isn't Storm wearing her silver costume? And then this is why. It's amazing the MCU got away with it for as long as they did.
Right. It doesn't look good until Deadpool and Wolverine. Continue, Alexis.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I can't. Oh, yeah. How was a horse able to keep up with a plane? There was.
I left that out of the plot breakdown because I was like, one of you motherfuckers has got to bring this up or I will be sorely disappointed.
No, this is a horribly written movie, but I love it. And maybe that's because I watched it all the time as a kid. So, I got the rose tinted glasses looking at it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of shit we watch growing up when we're younger, not even as little kids, but just when we're teenagers or tweens or whatever, that we look back and we realize I can't hate it. I just can't hate it. No matter how hard we try, no matter how many holes you poke in the logic. I enjoy it. I love Billy Zane. Yeah, I love Tree Williams and Catherine Zeta-Jones just chewing the hell out of the scenery. I remember actually getting freaked out at the scene with the microscope,
Yeah.
That legit scared me as a kid. That was actually terrifying. So, and I swear to God, I think the Sang Brotherhood got their costumes left over from a Pirates of the Caribbean ride. I mean, one of them was wearing a bandana and a red and white striped shirt, like Mr. Smee. You know, it's like subtlety. Subtlety. What subtlety? Subtlety is for cowards.
Mr. Smee's got tired of Captain Hook shit and decided to join a real
band of pirates.
I'm tired of trying to kill a pubescent boy. Fuck Jim.
Hell, even the whole line, "the ghost who walks." I don't care if that is from the comic or not. That line makes no sense as a description. You know, it's just, okay, so the ghost walks. What?
As opposed to the ghost who floats.
Yeah, but I really like this
supposed to be an actual reference to Ghost, because I figured, because the kid in the movie just called white people ghost. Like, I figured it was just a weird way to say some white dude that runs around here.
Well, the whole idea behind that is that, as the intro explains to us, the mantle of the Phantom has been passed from father to son, and the costume covers most of their face. So to any of the enemies, it would seem like we just shot him like in the head 2 days ago. What the fuck? So it's the whole idea of like he's died, but like his ghost has returned to haunt people. So that's the whole point of Ghost Who Walks.
Oh, I also want to give a shout out to James Remar, plays Quill. Remar is one of my favorite character actors. He has been in so much stuff, and I love it when he comes on. It's so weird. It's like a lot of people know him as Dexter's dad from the Dexter TV series, Hellraiser 5. He was a recurring character for a few seasons in Sex and the City, but I've seen him in so much. He's just one of those actors that pops up all the time. And it's like a Where's Waldo thing. So I love that this movie, we actually got to see him play more of, not a leading role, but a more substantial role than just, I'm here, I'm dead.
Right. No, and I would absolutely agree with that. Alexis, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
I think I've said everything I need to say. Like I said, I legit like this movie, and I will never be able to defend it.
So Mark, over to you.
I think it's a fun romp through the jungle. Again, if you're into the sort of 1930s pulpy action adventure, white savior goes to the jungle type stories. Old Tom Swift, the kind of stuff Steven Spielberg jerks off over. Him and George Lucas just pulling on each other's wieners, watching white guys in the jungle. They just love it. It's fine. I mean, it's not perfect. It definitely. I don't know if it was the time I was watching it or where I was watching it over the weekend, but it held my interest more than The Shadow did, but not by much.
Okay.
I was kidding around about my son earlier, but to his credit, this stuff kind of works in pulp novels and comic books because of and something I've been thinking about lately is how a medium a character changes per the medium that they're in. They work better here than they do there. And I think the problem now is, 4 quadrants, it has to work here, it has to work here, and it has to work here and here. And sometimes something just works as a comic book. That when you try to adapt it into a movie, strict page to screen, everything looks goofy as shit. It doesn't work. Robert and I have talked about this a lot. The art of the adaptation is sometimes a strict page to the screen adaptation is not going to work, and you have to find a way to make it work. Which I think when you had an audience that was a little bit more tolerable and a little bit more patient of that sort of thing was fine. Now, if you don't make the exact comic book come to life, everyone gets mad at you and goes on Reddit, and it becomes a whole problem. And then studio executives are so goddamn afraid of toxic fans that they're locked into creating the kinds of things that I talked about an hour ago with the CGI dwarves from Snow White. You know, it's like we don't know what to do. You know, we used to have artists do adaptations and you make adult decisions. We don't have that anymore. So I'm looking at this. That's the point I'm trying to make. It does look silly that he's running around in this ridiculous outfit in the jungle. And I'm wondering if there was a discussion about, is there any way we can make this slightly more realistic? Well, no. Then he's not the Phantom anymore. And then why are we doing this? I don't know. Great question. Why are you doing this? Because it's fine as a cartoon. It's fine as a comic book. Here's a thought, and you know, hear me out on this. Not everything has to be a fucking movie.
True.
You know, I'll give you another example of this, and then I'll cede the rest of my time to Chae, because we are running long here.
A little bit, yeah.
Nicolas Cage, the test shots of Nicolas Cage in the outfit of Superman.
Mm-hmm.
How do you not look at that and go, abandon ship? Whatever we're doing here, stop.
See, I want that movie. I wanted it so bad because, like, I feel like again with movies like this coming out in the '90s and like this, just the three we just talked about, we would have had to turn this into a quad feature. Like, we have to talk about Superman Lives by Tim goddamn Burton just to piss Mark off.
I got a better one for you, Mark. Halle Berry in the Catwoman costume. Because I still remember the day that was on the cover of the Rolling Stone magazine, and we got a copy of that I remember someone had it in our classroom. We all looked at it, and we were all going, "How the hell has somebody looked at this and said, yeah, let's give them money to make a movie about that?"
Let me tell you, if you forget that that's supposed to be DC's Catwoman, and you just think it's a Roger Corman B movie, Catwoman works just fine.
Oh yeah.
Sean and I, it was one of the first on trials we did, and I insisted we do Catwoman. It was kind of like, when we first started the On Trial podcast, like I told you this in one of our conversations, Dorian, I had a short list of movies I wanted to defend, and Catwoman was one of them. I'll die on that hill. That is a great B-movie feature. It is an underappreciated
with this ship.
It is an underappreciated gem. If you do enough drugs that you can forget that that's supposed to be Catwoman from the comics,
right?
And it's just a crazy Catwoman lady, and it's fine. It's slightly BDSM and weird.
Yeah, no, because I did find out. And sorry, just real quick about Catwoman.
Yeah,
somebody was talking about this, and I did some research on it. There's literally a picture. It's like a behind the scenes photo of Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman on the desk of the teacher.
Yeah,
that she goes and talks to. So it's like, see, same universe. It's like, oh, fuck you.
I know what you're talking about. It's the scene where all the photos are laid all over the floor. If you look closely, it's like partially obscured, but you can clearly see it's the Catwoman cowl.
Nothing makes me want to bully a person more and hurt them than the word cinematic universe. I'm just so over that. Anyway, the point of this long rambling rant was to say, it's a fine enough pulpy movie if you can really pump up your suspension of disbelief. However, without that, this is impossible to get through, and it's a really good lesson in, hey, let's look at some dailies and make some adult decisions about whether or not we want to go through with this.
Hey, Chae? Dad, why the fuck is he in purple? He's in the jungle.
yeah. You know what? Maybe like hire like a group of kids that are as smart and as insightful as my son and cynical. If you can find that combination of kids, and be like, here, watch some of these dailies. What the fuck is this? And they're all like on TikTok. All right, we're pulling the green light from this movie. We're killing this.
I just love all the horrible movies.
Hang on. The new phrase for the Radulich and Broadcasting Network in 2025, don't be afraid to kill the movie. Now go, Alexis.
I was just saying, of all the movies you have shown your son, I love that the hill that he is finally willing to die on is Billy Zane in purple spandex. It's like everything that child you have put him through, and that's his breaking point.
I showed him the scene, because it's on YouTube, of Harvey Keitel pulling over the two girls in Bad Lieutenant. And he looked at me and was like, why would you show me this? And I'm like, because I sometimes mumble, come on, you, show me your tits. And no one knows why I'm saying it, and I'm doing Harvey Keitel from Bad Lieutenant, and I have to provide context. Only father on earth to show the 10-year-old a clip from Bad Lieutenant. I'm proud of myself. All right, Chae, follow that shit.
Honestly, I don't have much to say. This was a movie. The locations were beautiful. The costumes were really pretty. Billy Zane is really pretty.
Billy Zane's a pretty man.
It's like
Wasn't that? Wait, that was the line from Tombstone. Remember, prettiest man I ever did.
I ever saw.
Yes.
It looks like she's about to force Ghost out of here.
But other than that, it just, for some reason, it just didn't grab me. I think the most entertaining thing I got out of this movie was the end scene Schwartz fight. The ring and the bomb.
You have the ring. I see that your Schwartz is as big as mine.
It's not the size of the Schwartz, it's how you use it. Yeah.
Shit, I hate it when I get my Schwartz twisted.
Let's see how you use it.
Shoot. He did it.
What?
It's my favorite thing in Spaceballs.
Anyways, Chae, do you have anything else, or are you just, is your brain just done?
My brain's just done.
Okay.
I can see
I'm
the
tired.
I can see the toast with the butter on that shit. Let's take her home.
Right. I did have some small bits of funny trivia about this movie I wanted to share with you guys just because I knew you'd get a kick out of it. In the 1970s, pre-production began on a low-budget Phantom feature to be shot in Mexico, with the 1966 Batman star Adam West in the title role. However, there were issues with the character rights and the film was scrapped. See, somebody was smart enough to kill the movie.
There used to be adults working in Hollywood.
Here's the one that, again, I know especially Alexis and Chae are going to go, the fuck? Bruce Campbell and Kevin Smith were considered for the role of the Phantom.
I really wish I could see Bruce Campbell in his heyday as the Phantom.
500-pound
Kevin
comic
Smith,
nerd
back
Kevin
when
Smith?
he was still fat?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
I don't. Yeah.
How are you gonna get his fat ass into the fucking spandex? He looked like a turducken.
I also read that same trivia. Apparently, Joel Schumacher was considered to direct this. Can we all have a moment? Okay, rest in peace, Schumacher. Lost Boys is still one of my favorite vampire movies.
Oh yeah.
But can we all have a moment to thank whatever powers that be that we did not get Joel Schumacher as the Phantom?
I disagree. I want Joel Schumacher. And
I'm
Kevin
kind of
Smith
excited
in the
to
Phantom
see an
movie.
alternate universe where Phantom nipples exist.
Kevin Smith in a fucking garbage bag and pasties.
It's a purple.
Sala would be dressed in like scandalous lingerie the whole time while she was a pilot.
Let's lean into this. Let's get the girl who played Precious in there. You know, like Chris Farley. You know, who else? What are the fat asses gonna be getting these movies? Something.
Yeah.
Now get rid of Joel Schumacher. Now we need John Waters.
Yes.
Yes.
John Waters presents The Phantom, starring Divine. Perfect.
Oh god, yeah, no, and that's the thing is that like with how kind of goofy the Phantom is, anyways, I don't know if Joel Schumacher would not have done a better job.
Again, you have to lean into the silliness, or
it's like it really feels like the director of this was trying to take it so seriously and like make it feel like Indiana Jones because again, same writer, and I think that's where it fails. Yeah. But we haven't run out of
Here's your equation for success. Pitch your movie to an autistic 10-year-old. If he says "fuck you," kill it. Kill it with fire.
Go home. But yeah, so we're running a little long, so I'm gonna go around one more time before we get to our personal pitches. And I'm gonna add this because Mark's gonna need it. Gun to your head. You have to watch one of these movies once every year. Which one do you pick? Alexis, starting with you.
It would definitely be The Phantom. Like I said, I know it's a stupid movie, but I love it.
Drugs?
Guilty.
Obvious answer was Dick Tracy.
I was gonna say that's okay. That's the question. Do we have to watch this sober, or do we get to watch this with the controlled substance of our choice?
The controlled substance of your choice.
Ooh, then I am definitely getting high as a kite and watching Dick Tracy.
Fair play. So your sober answer is the Phantom. Trash as fuck is Dick Tracy. Mark.
Yes.
With that same idea in mind.
On or off drugs, the best movie of the three was Dick Tracy, and that's the one I would watch again.
Okay. Chae?
Yeah, I'd go with Dick Tracy too.
No love for my boy Lamont. I'm sorry. For me, I guess I'm the same way that Alexis is about the Phantom. I am with the Shadow. I usually watch it at least once a year.
Dorian, I gotta ask you, take your sentimental attachment and youthful connection to it out of it, and just be a Vulcan. Answer that question one more time for me.
Which one of these would I watch?
If you have with no emotional attachment whatsoever.
Just as a film student.
Yeah, it'd have to be Dick Tracy.
Sadly, see?
I'm Tolkan.
No one should argue with me. I am a
God.
But
I will say the audience watching, all three of these are due one watch. Again, with controlled substances of your choice, if necessary. They're fun. They're dumb. If you weren't born in the 90s, or you were born so late in the 90s game that you don't remember them, go back and give them a watch. They're fun, guilty pleasures.
They are definitely a window into that period of time of of filmmaking.
What Batmania brought us. But yes, okay. So let's. If anybody else has any dyingly important thoughts that need to be said before we start shuffling out of here.
No, I'm going to answer for everyone. No.
Okay, he has spoken. Alexis, do your pitch.
All right. If you want to see more of me, and I don't know why, but if you do, I will be back next week to discuss Wicked with Chae, Mark, Mick, and Robert. Robert being forced there against his will. Later that week, Mark and Jess and I are going to be taking a look at season 4 of Only Murders in the Building, which I have got to binge like hell this weekend.
I started last night. Actually, Jonas and I watched the first episode together, and he looked at me and he was like, "And what is the appeal of this again?" I'm like, "You got to watch it from the beginning and not be 10."
I have not had a chance to start watching it because I currently have over 50 orders from my shop, which brings me, of course, to the plugs that do pay the bills. Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. We just wrapped up our Black Friday sale, but we are continuing our charity drive, in which if you place an order from either our Etsy or our Handmade at Amazon shop, for every order placed, we will be donating $5 to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. We are going to be running that until Christmas Eve. So even if you're concerned that you're not going to get your gift in time for Christmas, if you still are interested in our accessories and you want to help a notable cause, go ahead and place that order. As always, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, because screw you, Twitter, I'm off of it, and TikTok. Again, that's Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic.
Thank you so much, Alexis. Mr. Radulich.
Yeah.
Tell them where you pissed from.
Yes, sir. This past Monday, Robert and I reviewed Moana 2. Alexis was there as well. This Sunday is a new episode of Sessions, and we're going to be writing a song about how I incessantly bring up The Wire, as I did earlier. So
what's this we thing? You mean you're giving ChatGPT an order?
We work collaboratively, my love.
The next hour of this podcast is bitching about AI.
Yeah, so Jesse and I are going to put together a song. I have art already. I have lyrics. We just need to figure out the music and tell some stories, as we do on every sessions. If you haven't had an opportunity to listen to sessions yet, because you're like, what is the appeal of Mark and Jesse playing with AI and making music? Let me tell you, it's the most fun I've had doing this in a very long time. It is, because we are not so tied to structure. It's me and Jesse just doing the magic that is me and Jesse, but also creating some really funny songs and having a good time telling stories. So give it a listen. I truly enjoy it. I will never stop doing sessions now. I'm like addicted to this podcast. So, and if you were like, wow, you certainly got an ego. Oh, you haven't heard nothing yet. Yes, this Monday, we've got an all-star cast of panelists to discuss Wicked. 3 weeks after everyone else has already talked about it. be fantastic. I haven't seen it yet. I will see it this Sunday with my kids. And then, Wednesday, is Only Murders in the Building Season 4. Alexis, guess what? I showed Jonas and Lily The Three Amigos.
Nice.
Yeah, that was fun. Because Jonas
Just
was
give
like,
them
show me
some context on who the fuck these two old people were.
I had, that's what kind of was revolving around me talking about Only Murders in the Building. And I said, let me explain Martin Short to you. And then I screamed, I'm possessed because I love Inner Space.
Another film written by Jeffrey Bohm.
Yeah, another movie I have to talk about one of these days. Anyway, and then Thursday, Chris Bailey is another triple feature. It'll this time we are. When I say another triple feature, another one of movies where we are trying to catch up from this past year of films we did not review. So this time we are looking at oddball horror movies that came out. We're looking at Strange Darling, which is on a lot of people's top 10 list. Cuckoo! And The Substance, which is also on a lot of people's top 10 list. And that'll be myself and Mick Wanamaker and Robert Winfrey. That's what's going on in my world. I'm done talking now. However, it says it on screen, but for those of you who are still listening to this audio, and I didn't know anyone who only listens to audio is still out there, but you can catch clips of these shows on TikTok at Mark Radulich on TikTok, plus whatever goofy stuff I'm posting and skits with my kids, fun stuff there. Check it out, all on my TikTok at Mark Radulich. Now I'm done.
Fantastic. Sleepy Chae, take us home.
All right, I am Chae Tate from Tate FX. We do props, costumes, and makeup designs. If you want to look exactly like one of the insane motherfuckers from Dick Tracy or The Shadow, or I probably can't make you look as pretty as Billy Zane, but
Only God or a very highly trained plastic surgeon can do that.
Yes. But if you need anything for any shows, films, Halloween makeup, anything like that, go ahead and look us up at Tate FX on Facebook.
I just want to kick open your door one day and be like, Chae Tate, make me look beautiful. And so you jump out the fucking window, cowardly lion style.
Mark, you're already beautiful.
Oh, well, thank you, Chae. You can come back. Flattery will get you everywhere.
Jinx. I am Dorian Price from Frikey Pictures. Needs to be filmed, needs to be photographed, needs to be edited. We want to make your dream a reality. Find us at Frikey Pictures on Instagram, or we're kind of changing some things around. The Facebook business page is now Dorian Price Photography and Videography. We're just trying to upgrade and make sure we get the LLC before we put it on Facebook. But yes, this has been a lot of fun. I know none of these movies are, well, I mean, one of them, strangely, is an Oscar winner, which screwed with me when I pulled up Dick Tracy. I was like, 2-time Oscar winner? What the fuck?
Oh, for makeup?
For makeup, yeah.
Makeup, production design, and song.
Song, yeah, because you did get 3. It won 2, but it got nominated for 3. But for Alexis, for Mark, for Chae, thank you guys so much for being on this show with me. It's been a lot of fun. And to all of you watching, we love you, and there's not a single damn thing you can do about it, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.